everyone, this is Stuart Marshall. I'm the potter here at historic Bethabara Park. Today I'm in the 1782 Potter's House, and I'm going to do a pottery demonstration for you, tell you a little bit about the Moravian pottery here. And the first pottery shop here at Bethabara was built in 1755, and Gottfried Aust was the name of the first potter that came here. And he made a variety of pieces, everything from cookware, like this skillet right here. You can tell it has a hollow handle with 3 legs on it to place over coals for cooking. And more specialized pieces like this teapot, coffee pots as well. Most of what they made was very simple, jars and pots. Eventually they did make some more specialized pieces, even like this slipware plate right here, that they became sort of famous for in the surrounding area. And I'm going to show you about the first part of the process, which is throwing. Of course, you have to have a good source of clay, which the Moravians did find here. Along Monarchus Creek right over here, there's a good bed of clay. And you have to dig that and process it to get it ready for the throwing. And let me show you why it's called throwing. That's the beginning right there. It's to actually throw the clay onto the wheel. And this is called a kick wheel. You can see why. This is how we get it to spin, through kicking. And once it's going fast enough, you're going to get some water on that clay. This is a sea sponge. Get a little bit of water on there and start what's called centering the clay. And it's just what it sounds like. It's trying to get that clay perfectly in the center of the wheel. And you can tell the harder I press on the clay, the more it slows down the wheel. And that first potter here, Gottfried Aust, he got here, he dug his clay, and he began to build his shop, which was closer to our Palisade Fort over there within it. And within months of setting up shop, he already had customers coming from all around, and eventually up to 100 miles away from Rod River in South Carolina. And the Moravians traded their pottery as far east as Charleston, South Carolina, and as far west as Fort Dobbs in North Carolina. And one of the reasons they were so successful is because North Carolina's population at the time, most people lived closer to the coast, so they could import their pottery. And when the Moravians built their town of Bethabara here, many of the people in this area did not have access to good pottery. And then when the Moravians set up shop, they found a variety of ceramics or pottery that they could use, everything from cooking to eating. And the Moravians even created smoking pipes, as well as shingles for roofs. I'm going to see if I can make a basic jug for you that would have been in high demand at the time for storing liquid. Of course, Bethabara had a very successful tavern here and a distillery, as well as a doctor. So the potter made all kinds of containers for storing medicine and other liquids. Gottfried Aust had quite a few apprentices throughout the years. And sometime in the 1760s, he had a young man named Rudolf Christ as an apprentice. And Christ, by the 1780s, became a potter here at Bethabara, and then later was the master potter at Salem. And some other apprentices here, some of them stayed within the Moravian towns, and other ones moved to places like Salisbury, to the south. And even some of them moved as far as Tennessee to set up their own pottery businesses. So after sintering, you're going to do pulling, which is just what it sounds like. It's pulling that clay up so that it's tall. You also want to do some collaring, which brings the clay back in, keeps it from getting too wide. And you can use, of course, your sponge and a variety of wooden tools. This is called a rib, which is used for shaping especially the side of the clay walls here. So once you've got the height that you want, you can start doing more shaping of the clay. And if I can, I'm going to take this wide mouth right here, try to make it more narrow so that we have a bottleneck at the top. Like that. It's a little rough around the edges, so we can use lots of different wooden tools to shape it up in the end. And then when we're ready, finish it off, make sure it's as narrow as we need so everything doesn't spill out. You can also use a sponge, smooth things out. You can tell the more I touch it, the more it's wanting to twist, so we can always just trim off the top. And use the rib for any final shaping. And maybe even add a few lines for decoration. And there we go. And now once we stop the wheel, let this dry out a bit till we get dry enough to where it's called leather hard, which means you could bend it sort of like you could leather. Then you would make a handle and attach that and make sure it dries without cracking. And then it's ready for firing in the kiln, which is like a big oven. And of course here they had a wood-fired kiln. And they were making what's called earthenware or redware, so it's not a really high temperature, but it's high enough to get the clay, of course, perfectly dry and then hardened. So that's a basic jug like the ones they might have made here.